this video, I decided to give you guys a shorter version of my testimony. I made I think it's like an 11-part playlist of my long-form testimony, how I went from initially being an atheist in college and then later in my adult life becoming a Buddhist, and then spending 9, 7, 8 years as a hardcore Buddhist, and then suddenly God coming into my life and then becoming reborn as a Christian. The reason, the playlist, there's a link to the playlist down at the description. It's so long overall, it's over an hour, so I figured, okay, I gotta give people a shorter version, so hopefully I can keep this to like 1 or 2 videos max. Alright, so I'm gonna get right to it. In early 2001, I moved to the US to start studying to become an engineer, and I went to one of the big Midwestern technical institutes. I had 2 roommates at the time, super cool guys, John and Guy. I remember we'd have tons of interesting discussions and talks about all kinds of stuff, you know. 3 really brainy dudes enjoying, it's like the Hogwarts for geeks, you know. And my buddy John, he was one of the smartest guys I've run into. Brilliant guy. And he was an atheist that came from a very pious, religiously active family from like the countryside in the Midwest. And my other friend Guy, who was much more open to Christianity at the time, but he wasn't a practicing, you know, guy. He was, I think, thinking about it or something like that. Who knows? Like, kind of like maybe most people. A few years after, so I, on the other hand, I was a total atheist. I'd had it up to my eyeballs with religious people, and Christianity had really rubbed me the wrong way. And I felt it was filled with people that struggled with personal desires and just ended up becoming hypocrites. And I really didn't like what I perceived as a lot of shame culture within the sort of hardcore active Christians that at least I bumped into. Maybe that was me reading them wrong and things like that, but at that time that was my that was how I saw it, and I didn't believe in anything like the mystical. I had a very hard time accepting strange things, and I didn't like people that talked about strong religious experiences or weird things. I thought they were people that were lying and just wanted attention. It was also a way that I would sort of form my focus on the world and, you know, Darwinian sort of worldview, so to speak, you know. Obviously we were a bunch of engineering students at a technical institute, so it sort of comes with the territory also. A few years later, towards our senior year, we all get together again. We only lived together as freshmen, as roommates, and then the next year after that we split up. We live in different places, and we're really busy with our studies, so we don't really get to hang out a whole lot, but we started off as, you know, a really reasonably tight-knit crew in our freshman year. Went through the whole 9/11 nightmare together at that time, you know, because I had moved to the States just a few months before the 9/11 incident. Terrible times. So we get together, I think this is late in our junior or early in the senior year, and the guy is about, he's been dating a Christian girl, also an engineering student, for probably about 1.5 years, I think now. And we're all having pizza and a beer at the place that we used to go eat at. and Guy decides to talk about his journey to become quite an active Christian follower, and we just think it's interesting. But I mean, I'm a little bit like, oh, how did we lose Guy to this madness type of thing, you know? And Guy starts explaining about how he perceived himself becoming attacked, spiritually attacked, as he was entering into his time as a Christian, phasing over, becoming religiously engaged. And what he would describe is that he would have reoccurring nightmares, terrible nightmares, and he would wake up in the middle of the night just feeling like something's utterly wrong. And then he'd check the time, and it would be, I don't remember the exact time, but it would be, let's just assume it was like 2:22 at night or something, you know, a sequence of numbers. And he would have this experience reoccurringly, and it would always be the same time. And these are things that are called synchronicities. I believe it's a term coined by Carl Gustav Jung, the father of modern psychotherapy. And it's a very strange thing. So, and I had little space for this stuff. I just thought, you know, if it wasn't for Guy telling me this, I would dismiss it. I would see it as a complete lie. The only reason why I took it in is because it was Guy, and I have more than ample reason to respect what he says, and he's not going to make things up. It's just not what we do. I compartmentalized that information and I put it into sort of like the back burner of my memory, so to speak, and I didn't think much of it. I was busy focusing on my school, and you know, I had to, you know, hurry up and graduate on time and then get myself into the job market, you know, and I was very focused on getting a good job and starting my career. I didn't have much time for spirituality and things like that. I started working as a professional beginning of 2016, and immediately my career is intense and high stress, and it takes everything that I have, and I spend most of my free time with people at work and things like that, and there's no such thing as like religious talk or anything. It's very much spending hours at work and then going out and traveling or something like that, eating the food you like, or going to a bar, buying stuff you want, planning skiing and snowboarding vacations, pretty, you know, fun stuff like that, and hanging out at clubs and getting drunk on the weekends. Anyways, about a year and a half of that, and I'm getting completely burnt. Like, university itself was hard enough, and now my life just got even tougher. I'm making tons of money, but I just don't see what the point is, and eventually I migrate into a office job where it's very calm, and I end up moving to Chicago. And I have all this free time in my hands, and I'm trying to find grounding and reason in my life. So lo and behold, somebody recommends a book on Taoism, and maybe you guys have read it. It's called The Tao of Pooh, Winnie the Pooh, and I'm a complete atheist at the time. I have no space for anything, but I start reading this book and I get really like I start getting into like Eastern wisdom traditions and philosophies, like, you know, Taoism especially, because it's like, oh, you know, just learn to be with the flow of things, don't hold on to things, don't try so hard, just let it go. And I really get into that, and maybe it's because I'm half Asian and I need to get in touch, re-establish my touch with my East Asian side. Anyways, years go by and I'm sort of just dabbling with, you know, like Taoism, and whenever things stress me out, I'm just like, whew, let it go, you know, just wait a couple of days and it won't matter. And so I go on with my life at least another 5, 6, 7 years. Around 2013, my life's been going reasonably well. Now I'm married and, you know, got a mortgage, and there's other stressors in life, but things are going all right. And I bump into all this research online and on TED Talks and YouTube, all this sort of like, you know, self-improvement stuff, and suddenly I get a phase of that where I'm like, oh, I should probably start exercising again and eating healthier. I ditch I ditch junk food. I start something called intermittent fasting, which does wonders for my health. And I see a TED talk about all this new what's it called, neuroscience research on brain plasticity and the benefits of mindfulness breathing meditation. So me being the go-getter nerd that I am, I start reading about it, and I incorporate a daily 10-minute morning meditation session where I sit down and I listen to John Kabat-Zinn's guided meditations, his CDs, and it's all about like focusing on the breath, da da da, and eventually I make it from being able to sit there for like 5 minutes without my brain going thinking about a million things to like 25 minutes, and I feel like I ran a marathon or something, like the Boston Marathon of self-achievement. But I'm still very secular at the time. I don't believe in anything mystical, and months turn into years and I'm doing this thing regularly, and it has a manifold of positive effects that are just actually quite phenomenal. And integrated with, say, intermittent fasting and getting back into exercise and things like that, the neuroplastic effects were just, they were just really, really there. And at the time I was taking a master's on top of working full-time, and I could benchmark myself. I started the master's before I started all these things like meditation and intermittent fasting, and I could then see the difference. Like before, I would have to read something like 2-3 times and spend like an hour to understand something, and boom, suddenly I could like spend 25 minutes, 20 minutes reading it once over, and it was just really, really there. So I saw all these crazy benefits mentally from doing this. But it takes effort. You got to put in the work, you don't get it for free. Other things happen, like I become way more calm. I notice that the background chatter of my brain really, really reduces, and I don't have these problems of just like, negative thinking and like, thinking about a million different things when I should really just be focusing on one thing. Anyways, I'm starting to run out of time in this video, and I'll catch you on part 2.